Hello, history fans. Welcome back to 5 Point Historian. Today, we all love taking a hot shower, brushing our teeth with minty paste, and putting on clothes that smell like fresh flowers. But have you ever wondered what life was like before shampoo and washing machines? I have a warning for you. It was absolutely disgusting. The Middle Ages were a time of brave knights and beautiful castles, but they were also a time of terrible smells and dirty habits. Today, we are exploring 5 disgusting hygiene habits of the Middle Ages. By the end of this video, you will want to run to your bathroom and wash your hands. Before we jump into the mud and the muck, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us clean up the dusty pages of history. Now let's start with the most shocking way people wash their clothes. 1. Urine as detergent. The smelly laundry. Imagine you are putting on your favorite shirt. It looks white and clean, but then you take a deep breath and it smells like a public toilet. In the Middle Ages, this was normal. Why? Because the best way to clean clothes was to wash them in old urine. The science behind the smell. In the medieval world, soap was made from animal fat and wood ash. It was harsh, brown, and often very expensive. Most poor people couldn't afford it for their laundry. However, they knew a secret that the ancient Romans also knew. Urine contains a chemical called ammonia. Ammonia is a powerful cleaning agent. It eats away dirt, grease, and stains. It also bleaches fabric, making it look bright white. The real story, the job of the fuller. There was actually a specific job for this. These workers were called fullers. Their job was to clean wool cloth. They would fill large wooden barrels with stale human urine that had been sitting for a few days, because old urine has more ammonia. Then the fuller would climb into the barrel and stomp on the cloth with his bare feet for hours. Imagine that, walking in a bucket of other people's waste all day long. It was a very difficult and smelly job, but it was essential for the economy. In fact, urine was so valuable that people would collect it in pots at home and sell it to the laundry workers. There were even special taxes on collecting urine in some cities. So the next time you think doing laundry is boring, just remember, at least you don't have to stomp in a bucket of pee. 2. The communal sponge and the wipe. Now let's talk about something even more personal. Today, toilet paper is one of the most important things in our homes. But toilet paper wasn't invented until much later. So, what did medieval people do when nature called? The methods of the poor. For the average peasant working in the field, the answer was simple: use whatever is on the ground. They used handfuls of grass, straw, moss, or large leaves. If they were near a river, they might use a smooth stone and water. It wasn't comfortable, and it certainly wasn't clean, but it was free. The horror of the garderobe. In a castle, the toilet was called a garderobe. This was basically a stone seat with a hole in it. The waste would fall down a long shaft directly into the castle moat or a cesspit below. Because the hole opened to the outside, the cold wind would blow up into the bathroom. But the real problem was wiping. In some public latrines or monasteries, they didn't have individual cleaning tools. Instead, they sometimes used a communal sponge or a stick with a piece of cloth tied to the end. Communal means shared. Yes, you understood that correctly. You would use the stick, rinse it in a bucket of vinegar or water, if you were lucky, and leave it for the next person. The real story. The king's groom of the stool. For kings, the situation was different. The King of England actually had a servant with a very special title, the groom of the stool. This man's entire job was to follow the king with a portable toilet box, a towel, and a bowl of water. His duty was to help the king clean his bottom. While this sounds like a terrible job to us, it was actually a very high honor. Why? Because this servant was alone with the king during his most private moments. The groom of the stool heard the king's secrets and could ask for favors. It shows that in the Middle Ages, power was more important than hygiene. 3. Throwing waste into the street. Gardez low! If you walk through a modern city, you expect the streets to be paved and clean. But a medieval city was a completely different world. There were no underground sewer pipes. So where did all the waste from the chamber pots go? The answer is right out the window. The morning routine. Every morning in cities like London or Paris, people would wake up with a full pot of waste from the night. They would open their shutters, look down at the street, and shout a famous phrase, "Gardez l'eau." This is French for, "Watch out for the water." After shouting, they would dump the contents of the pot onto the street below. If you were walking to the market to buy bread, you had to be very fast and look up constantly. If you didn't hear the shout, you might get a shower of something terrible. The real story, the invention of high heels. The streets became rivers of mud, animal dung, and human waste. The smell was so strong that it made people sick. This disgusting reality actually influenced fashion. Have you ever seen pattens? These were special wooden shoes with very high platforms or iron rings on the bottom. People wore these over their normal leather shoes. The platform lifted them 3 or 4 inches off the ground. They weren't trying to look tall or fashionable. They were simply trying to walk across the street without stepping in the deep filth. The king's complaint. The problem was so bad that King Edward II of England once wrote a letter complaining that he couldn't walk down the corridor of his own palace because the smell from the river outside was too strong. The river was filled with so much garbage and waste that it moved slowly. It was a world where the smell was a constant companion, no matter how rich you were. I think I need a shower just talking about this. It really makes you appreciate modern plumbing, doesn't it? If you are enjoying these crazy historical facts, please like the video and subscribe to 5-Point Historian. We have 2 more disgusting habits to cover, and the next one is about what was hiding under the floor. 4. The filthy floors, the hidden zoo. When we clean our houses today, we vacuum the carpets and mop the floors. We want everything to be spotless. In a medieval house, the floor was often made of packed earth. To make it warmer and softer, people covered the dirt with rushes. The concept of rushes. Rushes were dried plants, like straw or reeds, that were spread across the floor. In the summer, they might add some sweet-smelling herbs like lavender to make the room smell better. On the surface, it looked nice and rustic, but the problem was what happened underneath. The layering method. People didn't change the rushes very often because it was a lot of work. Instead, when the top layer got dirty, they just added fresh straw on top. This created a lasagna of filth. The bottom layers could stay there for 20 years. The real story, Erasmus's letter. We know this is true because of a famous scholar named Erasmus. In the 1500s, he visited England and wrote a letter to a friend describing the floors. He was horrified. He wrote that the bottom layer of the floor contained spittle, spit, vomit, the urine of dogs and men, spilled beer, leftovers of fish, and other filth not to be named. Basically, the floor was a garbage can that you walked on. When the weather got hot, the heat would make the bottom layers rot. This created a terrible vapor that filled the house. It was also a perfect home for fleas, ticks, and rats. If you dropped a piece of food on a medieval floor, the 5-second rule did not apply. You definitely did not want to eat it. 5. Toothworms and weird dentistry. For our final point, open your mouth and say, "Ah!" Dental hygiene in the Middle Ages was a mix of pain, superstition, and terrible ideas. People wanted white teeth and fresh breath, but they had no idea how to get them. The legend of the toothworm. If you had a toothache, A medieval doctor wouldn't talk about bacteria or sugar. He would tell you that you had a tooth worm. People believed that a tiny worm was living inside your tooth and eating it from the inside. To kill the worm, they did crazy things. They might fill the hole in your tooth with wax, burn it with a hot needle, or use smoke from magic seeds to smoke the worm out. Cleaning methods. To clean their teeth, they didn't use soft brushes. They used rough linen cloths. To make their teeth white, they used very strong powders made from crushed bones, oyster shells, or even pumice stone. Pumice stone is a volcanic rock used to scrub calloused skin off feet. Rubbing this on your teeth did make them white for a short time, but it also scrubbed away all the enamel, the hard protective layer. This made their teeth rot even faster. The real story, Queen Elizabeth I. The most famous example of bad teeth was Queen Elizabeth I. She lived at the end of this period, but her hygiene was very medieval. She loved sugar. Sugar was a new and expensive luxury, and she ate it constantly. Because there were no dentists to clean her teeth, they turned completely black. Foreign ambassadors who visited her wrote that it was hard to understand her when she spoke because her teeth were so rotten. Eventually, if a tooth hurt too much, she had to have it pulled. But there were no dentists. Who pulled the teeth? Usually the blacksmith or the barber. They used a large pair of iron pliers. Without anesthesia, they would just grab the tooth and pull. It was so painful that many people chose to live with the rotting tooth rather than sit in the blacksmith's chair. So there you have it, a world where clothes were washed in urine, streets were covered in waste, floors were made of rotting straw, and toothaches were blamed on imaginary worms. It is easy to look back and laugh at these disgusting habits, but we have to remember that these people were doing their best. They didn't have microscopes to see germs, and they didn't have running water. They used what they had to survive. However, I think we can all agree on one thing. We are very, very lucky to live in the modern world. The next time you brush your teeth or flush the toilet, take a moment to be thankful. Thank you for joining me on this smelly journey through the past. Which of these habits did you find the most disgusting? Was it the urine laundry or the communal sponge? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to know what you think. If you enjoyed this video and didn't lose your appetite, please like and subscribe to 5 Point Historian. We bring you 5 fascinating points from history every single week. Go wash your hands and I will see you in the next video.